Hello, welcome back to another episode of Awakening with Soulspirational. I'm Tish, and with me today are these two lovely gentlemen. We have Rick Stutler and we have Steve Young. And I thought it would be wonderful if we came together and had some conversation. So we may wind up doing a couple of these episodes. Today, for this episode specifically, we will be discussing Ascension. But I want to get some housekeeping out of the way first. So you may notice that the feel of the space where we're taping from is a little different than you're used to. And that's because we have rented additional space down the hall. So for those of you who know where I am here in Wadsworth, we have additional space. And so we're taping down here. There's just more elbow room, although it may not look like it, but there's more elbow room here. And so anyway, that's what that's about. So we're going to talk about Ascension. And for those of you that, if this is something new to you, if you find it too hokey, change channel. For those of you where you're kind of, you may be familiar with the terminology, we would love for you to tune in. Anybody who wants to join us. Or not, that's okay. We're here for people to hear us, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So again, we're talking about Ascension. For those that may have joined us for the psychic fair, tend to look at Mr. Steve here as our Ascension guru. But we're going to discuss what that may mean for different people. If it resonates with you, then I would suggest to continue to listen. There may be certain guidance in here for you, or some things may come up where you're like, oh wow, that's what that is about. And I know I feel like I'm kind of talking in corners and circles here. So
well, we could talk in squares if you want to.
All right, so we're just going to get started. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the dictionary.com definition of Ascension, and then we're just going to get started. The three of us tend to really go down rabbit holes. So we're going to do our best because I know we're on a time limit. All right. So Ascension. So it's a few different meanings, but the one we're looking at, the act of rising to an important position or a higher level, and of course the ascent of Christ. So we are talking about ascending. Obviously, it's about ascension.
Yeah, and I think ascension can be something that's confusing to somebody who thinks of ascending as going to a higher level. Thus, you immediately start thinking about going to a higher level away from Earth. But that isn't exactly the case for human beings, because the ascension is coming from a non-physical place to this physical Earth and bringing that non-physical here for the purpose of creating in this physical world.
See, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Rabbit hole number one, ladies and gentlemen.
So, the non-physical bringing into the physical world for purposes of creating. So what are some of the things one could create with the information coming into the physical world?
Well, I think if you look at the history of the things that have been created here in this physical world, the buildings, the engineering with cars, the technology, all of that came from the imagination initially.
Which brings me to like Da Vinci or Einstein.
Yes. So inventions, I actually have a belief that nobody really invents anything, they just remember. And I know there's a lot of components that tie into those remembering, because engineering things can take a lot of time, a lot of architecting and drafting and drawing and planning and testing and failing to get to a finished product. But I don't look at invention as something from scratch that you've never known before. I think it's tapping into remembering things and gathering those things as you remember them and putting them together into something useful for humanity.
Yeah, and other people have their ideas too, which improves on some of those inventions. It's all coming from a different place.
And even if you look at it that way, like that is ascension in itself, in a different form, because you've taken what you cannot see with your eyes that's physically missing here on this earth and created it.
So do you see your energy, the energy of the mind or the consciousness, reaching up, ascending to gather that information and bring it back down? So form of ascension of the mind ascending to retrieve, to rediscover, to manifest, or to create.
Yes, and I think that's that component of bringing divinity to earth that's spoken about a lot, where the divinity is the non-physical spirit, the inner being within you, and the source that you come from, and tapping into that, bringing it into here as the inspiration to take actions here to create things.
So now let's talk about the reverse. Because most people probably that are familiar with Ascension, I don't know if I'm going to say most, but I'm sure there's a portion that does see it as ascending to a different spiritual level. So that's part of, do you see that as ascension? And if so, how do you see that, feel that?
So I'll only speak on my own experiences up to this point.
No, I want you to speak on Rick's. I'm just kidding.
Because I do see that also as ascension when you're reaching further spiritual levels, and even tapping into your inner self to get the inspiration to go to those further spiritual levels.
Yeah.
From the human perspective of where we're at right now, the ascension is more about the releasing of the conditioning that you're brought up in this society, to get back to your authentic self, to listen to your inner being, to listen to that non-physical, and have it help guide you through this life. And then from the contrast that you experience in this life, you then obtain the growth that levels you up spiritually. So that when you leave this physical life and you go back to the non-physical, you've gotten that expansion. You've done that leveling up, so to speak, in the spiritual realm.
Okay, we're done.
That would be Ascension 101.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is lovely. There are some that I have encountered where it is ascending to a different realm, different planets, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think each soul can very well have a different purpose. So a particular soul may want to come here and then ascend to a different realm permanently, and they go when they go. Another soul may tap into a realm or dimension to learn something or to grab information that can then be useful here back in this physical without ever leaving the physical body. So there's always varieties, in my opinion, to this, and there's never a one size fits all.
And not only that, it's just the things you learn. You not only do you, with me, I've actually learned things that I never knew before, just for this world. Not to mention when I go into my ascension mode, you see, just some of the things are just so cool, so fantastic. But it opens you up. It just how well. The way it's opened me up is there's so many possibilities that, when you just go from A to B, life is so mundane, but when you actually get into more ascension things, you see that life is much more than what it is here. And it also lets you know that chances are you've been here before a lot of times, which is kind of freeing in my mind, because it's like, no, folks, this isn't it. I mean, there's much more to it than this. But you're also learning things in this lifetime that helps you move on to your next experiences, I think.
And I think it's fair to say that more often than not, if not every time, this always starts with some sort of a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
Which
where
means
where we have an experience or an event or a feeling inside that kind of shakes us out of our daily lives, whether it's a traumatic event, a death, a divorce, loss of a job, something that shakes up the way daily life has been.
loss of a loved one even.
Yes, and it causes you to really go deeper than you've gone before in thought and even question existence, really. Like, why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And those awakenings are the beginnings of fully questioning what it is that we are inside and why we're here, that starts us on a path to getting back to our authentic selves.
Yeah, and not only that, the way life looks now is so much different. When when you're awakened, you I think that's when ascension starts right there. Because with my personal experiences, the trees were greener, the grass was greener, the sun was brighter. It was like a whole different world opened to me. And it's just like, oh, this is different. I mean, you just know something's different.
It's it's an opening. It's a shedding of resistance, and then it's an opening up of enhancement to your five basic senses.
Yeah.
So you see better, you smell better, you taste better. It may not necessarily be better, but it may be things that you're realizing that you just didn't notice before.
That's it in a nutshell. It's just things just come to you differently. And the experience is just incredible. And it's hard to explain it to people. But the thing of it is, you can't experience what you have experienced.
Nope.
Well, and that's the good thing I think about it is it's growth, and
Yeah.
it's a permanent growth, whether it's expected or wanted in the beginning or not. The growth isn't always pleasant.
No, it's painful sometimes.
So when you have an experience, you might think any leveling up in ascension means you've done something good or right and it feels awesome. That's not always the case. But you do, in my opinion, always see in hindsight that it was for the better, that it was for the betterment of your soul, for your purpose here. And it's those energetic shifts from the awakening that cracks you open out of the conditioning of society to questioning everything, to feeling the energy inside of you during your day-to-day interactions with people and with animals and with nature, and the heightened senses, the slowing down. If you can remember moments in your childhood where you were carefree, where you were just playing, where you didn't have the responsibilities of the world, where you were less conditioned, and you start tapping into that feeling, and then you actually start feeling the energy around you and the people around you. And it's the basis of that energetic feeling that you realize that those are the connections and those experiences. That's what's important here.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree that it's like watching a great movie that you want to tell people about? I mean, it's just so cool. I mean, I don't know how to put my finger on it. I mean, it's just very
In
opening.
some, just like sharing a great movie that you've watched, whoever you may be telling that to may not be receptive to want to watch that movie, right?
This is
Because
true, yes.
everybody is on their own path and journey. I think we all seek, whether or not we are conscious of the fact that we're seeking. But I think when life happens, that cracks us open, as you were saying. Um, for me, I think it was the death of the death of my dad. I think put me more into energy of fear, just because of ages and things, just everything that was going on then. But then 10 years later, when my mom died, like whatever I had already been listening to my soul for, opening up, growing, evolving. Actually, it was my divorce was my catalyst. Actually, and then taking it to my mother's death. That was when my mom died. That was when I could actually see. um, that shift, what the difference in that 10-year period of where I was from a state of fear when Dad died to a much better understanding of death 10 years later and the beauty, even though it was painful, but finding this beauty in dying and really feeling and knowing internally that there was something beyond here,
And
which I didn't feel with my dad.
and the intricacies of the order of operations from the first thing that really cracked you open and how that prepared you for the next step and the next
Absolutely.
step and the next step without you being conscious of it until you get to the point where you begin to be conscious of these things and you start seeing the signs and the synchronicities in life and the angel numbers and that sort of thing. And you take points of reflection to look back and say, now I know how I got through that situation because of this and this and this. And if it hadn't gone that way, I probably wouldn't have been here and able to handle this that way. And to me, those are leveling up moments. Those are shifts that you can feel in the energy that you've learned, that you've grown from. Even the smallest little shifts are ascending moments. And as you open up more and more and more to your inner being, to the spirit that's within you, to the soul that's within you, you let more of that out to the people in the world around you.
And as you're saying that, I'm actually picturing a seed filled with light that is cracked, allowing the light to come through. And as we continue to grow and to evolve, and we start to grow beyond that seed. And again, in my visual, I'm seeing light, like a tree, but of light. So we're feeling it more, we're recognizing it more. Although one does not have to be aware of their own light for other people to witness their light, but perspective.
Yes, and then there's also that case of the human conditioning where we want things instantaneously. So we oftentimes want to get to the destination and skip the journey. And the universe is very humbling in that sense that you will still have to go through these stages and these shifts, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Patience is the key.
Yeah, they're not on our time.
No, they're not.
And I believe that you can see in hindsight the appreciation that you have for the whole journey, even if you don't appreciate it as it's happening.
Mm.
But that's also an acquired taste, so to speak, of being through things in this physical life, being upset that something didn't happen sooner for you or didn't happen the way you wanted it to. And then several years later, you see the whole story of how it unfolded and got you to where you were. So from that point going forward in your life, you are much more appreciative of the contrasting things that happened to you then. And it almost becomes an exciting challenge of, okay, where's this going to lead me? What kind of negative yet positive things am I going to go through now in my life and on this journey?
And it's maturing as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's never, I wouldn't call this a simple thing. Would you? I mean, it's just, no, it's a process. And the problem, I think everybody wants everything right now, and it just don't work out that way.
Sometimes it does, right?
Well, yeah.
But yeah, most of the time around the universe.
It depends on what you're
time.
wanting too. I mean,
Yes.
That's part of the journey, in my opinion, too, is because in the cases where something happens instantaneously, I believe that's because there's no resistance in the way. That you are lining up with your inner being and what you want, and there's no obstacle in the way of you getting that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have you pause there. Maybe we'll do it on resistance. And going with the flow.
Yeah, this subject, you can go on for hours.
So, and I'm just kind of looking at the time here now. All right. So there are some who want to attain, they want to be able to spend this life in a way that will allow them to ascend beyond having to come back to the physical. So some will see that as you were calling conditioning, unlearning the conditioning, right? It may be a matter of releasing ego, that fear, whatever is jumping up saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, who do you think you are, such and such. When we recognize our own divinity, that all of us have the Spirit of God, or however you would say it, the Spirit of God flowing through us, I think that really matters. And I think when we can tap into that special place within us, we may find that it's easier to be more compassionate, easier to be more kind or more loving. So yes, some may see it as if you're somebody who believes in past life and karma, someone may believe that this is my life to make amends, so to speak, for the negative karma, getting that positive karma so I can have that zero balance, right? And then my soul is free and clear to ascend to wherever the person pictures where that place of ascendance is.
Yeah, and I think the idea that I partially believe, if not fully believe, is that there won't be a reincarnation once you learn all of the lessons that you came here to learn or go through the experiences that you came here to go through. So that would then require somebody to actually figure out what lessons that they were meant to learn here and learn them.
And that's part of seeking.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
That's part of the seeking. I am a big fan of questioning everything, questioning why, what, when, where, how. The how is not within our control, in my belief. I believe that the universe takes care of the how, and that's a lesson learned the hard way, even for myself, because you want to figure out the how yourself until you realize that you are not in control of the how. But getting the what's and the where's and the why's, getting those things moving inside of you, letting that energy flow inside of you to dig. And that's why it's said, for people who don't know what their purpose is on earth or what their passions are, one of the easiest things to do is just try new things, because you don't know until you know. And I'm a big believer going through my life that the things that I had passion towards, I felt an energy light up inside of me. And it took me a while to consciously see that. One of those things is speaking about spirituality. I can speak for hours about this because it lights up inside of me.
You can. We can attest to that because we've done it.
It just lights up inside of me, and I don't have to do anything to turn that on. It's like it's the alignment with my inner being, and it's like, yes, here you are. And you feel the energy light up, and then things happen. And for me, it's the words or the writing, and trying to take the information that's inside of me that's coming from somewhere else and sharing it through my filter in a way that other people can comprehend it, understand it, and use it. And so unlocking your lessons here in your time here in this life could potentially help you to make this your last incarnation here on this planet, if you so choose.
And so how do we go about looking at those, right? It may be self-reflecting. What are repeated cycles for self, right? It could be that self-sabotage. It could be certain relationships that we get into. Look at the cycles, what keeps repeating, because it may be that finding one's voice in this particular lifetime is part of the lesson. Standing in your truth, the seeking itself may be part of your journey of going within and recognizing that you are just as important, you have just as much value as anybody else who walks this earth.
Yep.
Nobody is better than, nobody is less than. People may have varying degrees of money or degrees from education, but the worth is no greater than or less than anybody else. To me, everybody has the same divine light flowing through them. It's a matter of the rediscovery, right? Of going in and finding that light, if you haven't already, to feel its warmth within you. When other people are like, oh my gosh, you're such a beautiful soul, and oh, how much you've helped others, but then the person hearing it may be like, well, yeah, that's great, I can love others, but I'm not feeling it for me. And that being part of the seeking as well, feeling that, opening up, that this lifetime, it may be that it's for you to find out who you truly are internally and to consciously have that light shine.
And I think that's one of the keys is that when you're looking at the cycles and patterns in your life, in what you call the issues or the problems, it's about what are the issues and problems to you. External people might think something is an issue or a problem with you, but it's really triggers inside of them dealing with
That's
them.
a really good point.
It's a matter of where you have a hang up internally with your energy and how that coincides with your alignment with your inner being. When you feel like something's off inside of you, those are the opportunities for you to explore the lessons that you're here to learn.
And every step, as I'm keeping an eye on time, with every step, that is a form of ascension, even if it's just a little pebble and then a larger stone and then a boulder. It's still, you are growing and evolving and getting however you perceive ascension to be, even if it's a matter of just being able to finally release the physical body, as far as having multiple lifetimes and just being able to ascend and be in that space.
Yes, absolutely. And if you want to use relationships as a context of one of these particular issues, if you have a cyclical pattern happening in relationships in this life, and it was part of your plan to come down here to learn how to deal with that particular issue, you can look at that pattern from the outside, and if you're able to address that pattern and heal that part of you, you will no longer have that same issue happening in your relationships going forward. You'll have that energetic ascension shift that's permanent, and you'll feel it and you'll see it and you'll understand it. A better person will walk into your life that you'll no longer have those past issues.
And it feels really good too to be like, yes, I did figure that one out. All right, so we're at time, so we're going to close down and stay tuned because we may just be doing one following up right after this. All right, so thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And if there's either one of these gentlemen directly you want to talk to, I can get you their information as well. So otherwise, thank you, be well, and namaste.
Thank you and take care.